All right, we'll get started. And Judy, are you ready or still handing out?
No, we're ready.
Okay. While we're doing the handouts, let me overview the topic for the workshop. And thank you three for showing up. You count, Scott, because you're the ears of Sharon. And what we wanted to do is offer another workshop to kind of run through the compensation system. And Tyler, you brought up a good point at the board meeting to couch it around the personnel guidelines. So what I handed out, 2 pages of our personnel guidelines that talk about the compensation guidelines. And so I was going to walk us through that to show you what changes we're going to propose for this system, at least from the personnel guidelines standpoint. And as you're going to hear, not much. And so if you look on, it says page 4, it's your page 1, it's just page 4 on the bottom. Scott, do you have a copy? You don't?
Or is it just,
Nope.
No.
So in our board-approved compensation personnel guidelines, there's a section 3, compensation guidelines. If you look at 3A, position classifications and pay grades, that's what we're talking about updating. And so we'll hand out the current version and the proposed new version in a minute. But if you look at A1, it says each position has a job description, title classification, and appropriate pay grade. That's not going to change. We're just changing how we define it. So in essence, if we have grades 1 through 11 right now, and we switched from that to grades 10 through 200, we're just changing the grades. Name of them. And so that's not really a change because the board doesn't approve specific pay grades for each of the positions. And so as we walk through for A2, the pay grade in each position considers the prevailing rate for comparable positions in the labor market area. Well, as Judy explained to the board, that's what we did. We went out to the front range. Hi, Andy, come on in. We got a spot here for you.
awesome. We wrapped up that.
Yep, grab away and we'll,
It's in the kitchen. Can I get you some? I
I know, it's not like a board meeting. We don't have all the coffee and snacks.
morning in.
No, just straight up and like that.
Just hot.
We got a place
That's it.
for you.
Either place there or over here, either way. We'll move the paper if we need to.
Oh, now I got to behave.
He's in range now.
I'm sitting between the chair and the executive director.
Thank you. Then he can't reach me. He's got to go through you. Andy, the page on your right, that one. I just started on that, and that's the excerpt from PPACG's board-approved personnel guidelines.
Thanks.
So as Tyler brought up during the board meeting, we wanted to say, what are the changes to our personnel guidelines related to pay, compensation, the whole thing? And it's only we're talking about. I just started under 3A1. That's not changing. We're just saying we're going to go for 11, 10 through 200. So we're relabeling it. So take a change to the personnel guidelines to put that in. And normally the board doesn't get to that level of detail. They just say, okay, according to this, there's job descriptions, title classifications, and pay grades. So we're going to continue that. Some things are going to change over to that. Under A2, the pay grades for each position considers the prevailing rate for comparable positions in the labor market area. You've heard in workshops and at the board. You said in the front range pay regular market. That's where we're going. So no change there unless by front range, but right now it's generic for labor market area. And that's usually we ask Mountain States, like we did in this case, what makes sense for our pool of employees? Should we go to the Springs area, or should we do the whole front range, or should we go national? And there's one reference to national I'll talk about momentarily. Section 2, we talk about new employees. That really is not part of the pay grade system, so no changes in that. where I slot people in the different pay scales. Monthly hourly rates, we're not changing that. Paydays, we're not changing that. So I'll have you turn the page over on the back side. Here's where some of the changes may happen. Let me walk through salary increases. Section E on page 5, for those following along. The first one, the salary increases, you can see that in that paragraph, we give people raises based on a couple of things. Either upon performance evaluations, which we do every year, increased job requirements, or budget restrictions. Right now, the board's policy and budgetarily, we don't pay more than the midpoint of the salary range. The board decided that, Barb, 15, 16 years ago, at least, a long time ago. About the time Barb and I started.
Okay, so say that again. We pay,
Yeah, so in the budget, the board only allows us to pay to the midpoint of the salary range for each position.
but that's the average.
That's the average.
Average.
Midpoint is the average, yes.
Right.
So,
Okay,
yep. So that's a budget decision the board has made, and we're still under that system.
that's fairly consistent across the region, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there, within the PPACG, there are few exceptions or no exceptions to that?
No exceptions. No one position can go beyond step 8 out of 16 or the midpoint. We can call it different things, but yeah, at the average, the midpoint, step 8 of our current system.
Okay, let me back up again. Because
That's
what,
the market.
okay, but.
Or market, there's the other word.
Yeah, because what I just asked a second ago was, that's the average. So you just said something that didn't sound like that. So you have 10 people, the average of those 10 people is at the midpoint, but one person is up above that.
No,
And
no
someone
one's
is
above
below
the
that.
mid-
No one? Okay, so
Currently,
the
we cannot-
midpoint is the cap.
That's correct.
You're right,
All right.
right,
The
but
midpoint in
in-
the market is our cap
Is-
as.
right, but it's a budget cap, not a market cap,
Right.
because they're,
So currently, it's a cap at midpoint. It's step 8 of 16.
yeah, that's good to,
This will show you what you currently have.
Yeah, because that actually is not the average around, or that's not the standard around the area.
that's what, yeah,
I'm not
sure the cities, counties, towns
No, the,
limit to the average
no,
of the.
no, they're, well, I can't speak for the other ones, but I know Springs and Utilities pays the average of the group to the midpoint average. So you do have people above and below.
Right.
But the average of the group
Oh, yeah,
is
no,
capped to the average.
right,
You know,
yes.
actually, we're trying to get them to the average,
right.
to the midpoint of the market average.
Yeah, and the recommended plan, new range, would open this range. So you have minimum, midpoint, and max. And you'd have an steps. You'd still have a midpoint. Yes, people can go above midpoint, just like there's people below midpoint. But it wouldn't be capped like this is right now.
Okay, that is a significant change.
That's a big change.
Yeah.
But dollar-wise,
Dollar-wise, it's a zero change, but,
there's some change because market's gone up a little.
well, yeah, but I mean,
The concept,
the concept, there's a significant change in that. Not necessarily a budgetary change in that. You could still have the group as an average, but you could still have people above and below. New people coming in below, you have a couple of people above.
So in the
That's
budget.
not current.
True. So we're basically going to recognize the full range in the market.
Okay. Well, that is a significant,
Doesn't mean we're going to pay to the top of the range of the market.
right.
We still have the budget restriction to say, the board may now say, your budget for compensation for salaries is this amount.
Yeah.
And so if we pay people above and below, we can't exceed that average
Right.
amount.
Right.
Your turn.
so
It's-
yes, that's the most significant change.
Now, is that change made by the executive director, or is that a board decision? How's that change if you were to go beyond midpoint?
Oh, it's not a problem to go beyond midpoint. People with 10 years of service and
Right.
they should be belong. It's just market, it's just the going rate.
Right, no,
The
I,
benchmark.
Right.
But there's no problem with people being paid who have 10
So that
years
would,
of service.
that's just something that happens in the
Hopefully-
back room, and the board wouldn't even be aware of it. That's basically a managerial function.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so every manager, if they had a pool of 3% to distribute for merit increases, okay, they could give someone 5%. But in turn, they gotta give a 2% or a 0.
Right.
But the point is, they have something to say about how they wanna distribute their money, but they're still accountable to that bottom line.
Okay.
And yes, you will always have the few, and we will also take another look at the performance matrix, because that ties in with the new ranges, and that's what I consider like budget control. Because once you get to midpoint, the percent of increases decrease, okay? So if I'm above market, and I'm used to getting 3% increases below market, when I get above, I might be getting 2% or 1%. So you still get an increase, but once you're paid above market, it slows down the percent of increase.
So that, yeah, go ahead.
Judy, if I'm understanding the tone of this correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the intent of this is assuming that you have qualified people on staff, would be to get those people to midpoint in the marketplace.
To
And-
remain
and-
competitive.
Yeah, and we're not paying them at that rate at the current time?
Oh, you have some,
Some,
but you have some that you have no one.
that we're lagging?
You freeze them, you cap them, and then there's no place to go above midpoint.
Because of the current system,
Because of this cap, yeah. You
Oh.
can see they're all cut off here,
Oh.
when they should be going up to here.
Well, we're artificially capping
Capping it, yeah.
folks that have been here long enough that, are at the midpoint, they can't go further. We'll talk about that in a second,
Oh, I'm
how
sorry.
we compensate them.
Yeah.
But the chart you have in front of you, the highlighted, it shows that not everyone is at the midpoint. So if we have a young new hire, they usually come in the lower part of the range, in the early steps. But in the new system, they'd be in the first quartile probably. So we're just translating where they end up in the range.
So the yellow highlights are actual
Yeah, where people are.
individuals.
Employee
Yeah.
groups.
And so,
So that gives you a good picture of,
Yeah.
snapshot of where you're at right now.
right. And normally, board, you don't see this. I mean, you've delegated that down for me and for me to delegate it to Barb as our HR professional. And then we bring Judy in as our high-paid consultant.
Yeah.
Yeah, our wise consultant. So let me get back to what, so far we've made changes. Board approves and haven't worked in a while. So under page 5, section E, first, when we talked about the salary increases, so salary adjustments are granted by me, but it's based on recommendations from all the supervisors and managers. Because I've got to keep it in tune with the budget. I can't start paying people, past the midpoint currently. And so that's the budget control we talk about. And the board approves, and a line item in the budget you all approve is for personnel costs. And so that's where the control by the board is right now. Step number 2, the step increases. Andy, you talked about step increases from your experience in the feds and the federal government. This is a different step. And so the chart we handed out, the big landscape with all the highlighted, what our personnel guidelines say, for most cases, if people work a year, they have a good performance review, they're gonna move a step in their range, and that's an annual thing. And so that's generally what occurs. But of course, if someone gets a bad review, they don't have to move up a step. It's not a guarantee. But unlike the reference you had, Andy, is going from, lieutenant colonel to colonel may take years to jump up some of those federal steps. This is not a federal step system. It's just
Well, no, the concept though is similar. You got grades and steps. I mean,
Right.
that's
it is.
that's common.
And so in the middle
Yeah,
of
I've seen people in the civil
Yep.
side of things go grades and steps, like a rocket,
or stagnate forever. I mean, it just depends on
It depends on the reviews.
the reviews.
And so, one of the proposals we're going to make to the board is getting rid of number 2, step increases, because under the new system, there's no steps. You'll see in a minute, and we'll hand it out, there are quartiles. You know, you got the top of the range, you got the middle of the range, you got the bottom. So it's stratified in 4 layers, not 16 layers,
It's called an open range.
in open range. Is that like a free range? Free range chicken?
Yeah, like a free range.
Okay, just checking. So, one of the proposed changes would be eliminating the step increase paragraph in the personnel guidelines. Item 3, the merit awards. Now, these are the ones that, for managers, supervisors, folks that recommend to me good work that people do, I can give them a bonus. It's really a bonus, and we may relabel it, instead of merit award, we'll just call it a bonus.
I'd rather you kept it as a merit award.
Okay. I mean, it's based on something.
Just personal preference, just because bonuses get, the term bonus is blown out of proportion by various people in various media.
My only other comment there is, we're hoping to move towards a merit pay for performance.
No, I agree that makes sense, but you be careful how you talk about it,
Yeah,
because
this
it
is a
gets.
this is a different merit award versus a merit increase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the two merits are confusing. They're both should be performance-based.
Right.
Yes,
So-
but that's,
For now, we can keep number 3 the same. Number 4, we're proposing to get rid of, based on Judy's recommendation. Cost of living, they just don't happen.
It's gone away years ago. There's still some government entities that
Right.
do it, but
So a couple of years ago, over the last 10 years, I think we, as it says here, we've moved the whole range up. Because say the Denver Boulder CPI was 2% higher. We've proposed to the board, put in the budget and say, okay, we're going to move the whole salary range system up 2%,
just move.
which acted like a cost of living
I was going to say,
increase.
that's a cost of living increase.
Right. So that, and it was consistent with our personnel guidelines, but we're proposing to delete paragraph 4 and not have an automatic cost of living. We'd rather put it all into a merit-based system.
Okay, but if you're comparing us to Denver, what's the cost of rent in Denver versus Colorado Springs? Huh?
We're not comparing you to them.
Okay.
With that.
Right.
Yeah, I know in the start of the meeting, you said you weren't, but you just referred to Denver in your
Well-
statement just now.
Right. Before, we used to look at the Denver Boulder
It's called the
CPI,
Denver Boulders.
Index,
Consumer Price Index.
yeah.
And so that's a measure of inflation. And so we would
That was
use
done a
that.
long time ago, but it's,
Right. Yeah, we haven't done that in a couple of years. And so.
Well, yeah, but you do the same thing, though. I mean, you come in there and say, the cost of living has gone up 2%, and we're going to give everybody 1%. Well, that 1% is still a cost of living increase, and
Yeah.
it's entirely consistent with what you got in here, subject to budget limitations, may.
Right.
You may just, so you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, we didn't do it last year, but 2 years ago we did.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
the cost of living, you can move that, Mountain States publishes a percent of salary structure movement,
Right?
and that's what companies, clients use to move their ranges, to move that midpoint.
But they just don't
But
call,
nobody
they
gets any-
just don't call it a COLA?
No, it's not
Yeah,
called
it's-
COLA. And COLA means people automatically get that everybody gets that 2%. When you move the range structure, nobody gets an increase.
nobody gets an increase?
No, that's separate. It's considered when you're doing your merit annual increase, they can benefit from it. But it doesn't, when you talk COLA, and you say the COLA's 2%, you give everybody 2%. It's like giving away free money. And what we're asking for is, we don't want.
It's not free money.
You'll still have a
you guys want to
salary-
get in line for that?
You'll still have a salary structure movement. Your midpoint's going to change, not every year, but every couple of years, because the market changes. So if I've been sitting over the maximum of the range, and my salary's been frozen for a year or two, and the structure moves, maybe I'll fall back under the range, and, and become entitled to an increase again. But, yeah, so it's not the same as COLA.
Right.
It's,
And one of the considerations we'll have, what we've done in the past, let me tell you about that first. We've looked at, we've moved the whole range, all the ranges moved 2%. But that 2% increase was tied to an annual evaluation. So under the annual evaluation, people could get, I mean, most people got it, but they could get the 2% for the market change. They could get a step if they still had steps up to the 8th step. And so they had those two considerations. They could have got a merit award for a job well done throughout the year. And so there's different ways people could get compensated. But what we're talking about now is we may consider what Judy was talking about. We can look at the Mountain States number to try to fit it within our budget to say, board, here's the components of we're going to move all the ranges by 1.5% based on Mountain States number, saying the market has moved up or down. It goes up or down, I would assume. It doesn't always go up.
I don't think I've ever seen it go down.
Okay.
You
But-
assume what goes up comes down, but.
Not that I don't love sitting across the table from you, but is this something that we're going to have to do every year? Or is this something that you interact with Rob and once we kind of get like
Once we get you
a trail?
Yeah,
you know,
no, you aren't, it won't be ever as extensive as this.
We haven't changed the system in 15 years.
Yeah, this
So you
is,
get a
this
good
has
base
changed
or
the
a
system. yeah.
foundation, and then it's easy after that. So every couple of years, again, you should do a market update, and that can be done once we've already done the hard work, the matching and all this stuff. So it's very easy and less expensive to just do a market update every couple of years. And then Rob just comes to you again with the budget number. He doesn't come.
Yeah,
to you
it's built
with
into the
all
budget.
this, but this is just to make sure you all understand, because there's such a change in your structure.
And helping to understand, I'm curious about the math behind the current pay grade and salary range. I assume that the midpoint is what's plugged in, and then percentages on either end for the maximum and starting are then segregated across the steps. But then I'm also curious about the grade position and why there's multiples of those numbers.
It's not my structure, so I'll let Barbara just.
Yeah, good.
This is our, these are all of our employee salaries in here. And so what we did is we removed the titles and the names. And so that's why you see several grades, because there are several positions that make up those grades. So,
So there could be under, I'll pick on
Grade
9. There could be a planner 4 and a CFO as both grade 9s. So each number represents an individual position. And so different positions fall in the same
So,
grade.
If I'm carefully looking, all the sixes are exactly the same. Okay.
Right.
That
and
makes
each
more
of those
sense.
highlighted, if you see those highlighted numbers, those are the salaries that position.
So then backing further up, how is the math worked out to come up with the steps within those
Yeah.
classes?
Yeah, when we ask Mountain States to go to market, they look at the whole salary range, and they plug in the beginning and top end.
Okay.
So say a planner is from 62,000 to 90,000, somewhere in the middle around that grade 8. And then you do the mathematics to figure out what's the midpoint of that range. And then it's, steps are a calculation, about 2.3% or so.
I'm thinking
It's a mathematically
about
plug in.
2% just between those steps.
But the steps aren't even, it is based upon the minimum and maximum.
Yeah, I think that's what we do. And
each
then
range
Right.
could be, the grade 11 is going to have a much higher increase from percentage between steps than
Right.
grade 1.
But, yeah, for each of the grades, you go, what the market says from this dollar amount to up to step 16. That's the total range for that particular position description.
And I'm going to show you the recommended proposed new salary structure midpoint, and I'm going to show you how it compares with your current midpoint. And I think that'll give you a better feel. And the range spread going from minimum to maximum is really pretty much the same. You started this one, I think, with 40% from minimum to max, we start at 35% for the lower jobs.
I'm not following you. What do you
So,
mean?
yeah, let's wait on, let me finish this,
I'll
and
let
then
Jeff show you.
we'll get into the weeds.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll tell you about the salary increases, item 5 on E5, the salary survey, where it says periodically, well, that's what we're doing now. We go to market and we use. We look at all our to our current prices and say, well, some of these experts in GIS are paid more now. Information technology is paid more. Our poor planners, they don't get any money because they're a dime a dozen, and I don't know if that's true or not. But, so the market will dictate what the new salary range is for each and every position. So right now, it looks like we have minor changes that we'll bring to the board as far as the personnel guidelines change, like deleting cost of living and deleting step increases. But everything else is the same. The board will have their weigh in when we get to the budget.
And you mentioned the cap at midpoint that's been
Yeah.
around for 15 years. That was by budget resolution. Is that because it's not.
No, it's not in the personnel guidelines. It happened before that, and again, it was boy, I'm trying to remember who the letter from Fred was to. I don't think it was to the board. I thought it was. I think it might have been the executive committee. But that aside,
So it's been policy, but was never passed, or
it was implemented through the budget.
it was implemented by BLEG? Okay.
Right, so the budget proposal salary is the total of all positions at the step 8 currently. So if you added up all the salaries for every position at step 8, that was generally the budget number.
Going back to the meeting where we discussed this, and where we hit the loggerhead on this, there were a lot of questions around how this would affect the PDA's budget.
Yeah.
Have a meeting then, if this is adopted?
Yeah, if, what we wanted to do is get this new structure in place,
Yes.
which doesn't have a fiscal impact until we go to the budget. It could have a fiscal impact, and Judy said at the board, and there are some positions, 3 or 4, that would require, to get to the minimum, may cost $12,000 or $14,000 to get those 3 positions to the bottom of.
I thought you said maybe. Okay.
And that number's on the sheets here, and Judy will take you through that. But I haven't decided that we can afford that yet. I haven't done the budget yet, and Casey's listening intently, because that's what we've got to put to the board to say, can we afford to even do that? Can we afford to do anything? I don't know. I'd like to base it on this new salary structure with the new salary ranges that were based on the market. So the work Judy did said each of the positions now have a new salary range. If the board agrees to use this new system, we're not changing anyone's salary. We're just changing how
Well, yeah, you're
how
changing,
we internally look at it.
and it'd still be a budgetary decision whether or not to implement.
Right.
I mean, you can implement the structure, but
Yeah.
then unfund, you could,
Yeah.
not fund
When you're
the impact.
trying to do this, it may take 2 or 3 years to get these
Yeah.
people up to where they need to be because of budget restrictions. And so
Sometimes below budget comes in, I have one right now, $1 million under. And,
Not
Sorry,
here.
see,
Not here.
What?
Some utility company, I think.
and so they're getting funding, it's a public employer, from many different sources. So they're trying to figure out how they're gonna get funding from here and there and everywhere, because they have to implement. The turnover is killing them, and that's costly.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, and sometimes I have clients that maybe it's 300,000, and their budget says, no, all we got is 100,000 at the most, to implement next year. So they've been giving it to the lower grades, not doing management increases, or somehow taking that 100 and applying it evenly. And next year we'll do phase 2. So yes, budget is bottom line.
So, and we're not there yet. So in
Well,
essence.
yeah, I mean, utilities,
Okay.
we did that in utilities, we took a 3-year phase-in plan.
Right, yeah, and we don't know if we need that. So in essence, what we're asking the board is saying,
This is structure.
take all these salaries, allow me and Barb, take all these current salaries that we're paying, drop it in a new system. No one gets a salary change, they're just going to be in a different chart. So if they're getting paid $60,000, they're still going to be paid $60,000, but instead of being at grade 7, step 2, they're going to be at grade 60.
The second quartile grade
Second
level.
quartile of grade 60. Right.
Yeah.
Same salary, we're just translating them into a
Yeah.
new system, which is a refreshed system.
So, let me challenge you a little bit. Why are you bringing this to the board? Because it doesn't look like you're needing to change much of the personnel policies.
Yeah.
Because you're still abiding by what is stated there, that there's step and grade. You're changing those, but that's not
It's not-
something that is excluded from what is currently in place.
Right.
And the minutia of you making decisions as to how you affect those restrictions and personnel guidelines is up to you as the manager and the executive director. And, I would discourage the board from delving into the market survey data too far, because I think that's much more the role of the staff and the management. And so
I'll tell you why in a sec.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, yeah, I would,
It's-
but
no.
before he says anything, I would say it's our job to approve this shift in methodology. But then he's got to implement.
But I'm challenging that it's not a shift in methodology beyond what our guidelines already have.
It's not a financial
You
consideration
say
yet.
There will be job descriptions, there'll be title classifications and pay grades. He's changing the way that
He's changing the way to do it, but,
He's still doing them.
well, you got a point.
I mean,
Right. No, it's a good point.
because, this is this, and then he's proposing.
He's gonna do a different-
B,
Going from A
but
to B,
It still fits within 3A1. He's still doing that. I don't see that we're moving away from that, and that there's,
We just thought because of the cap, the change in the structure, it was big enough.
Right.
now the budget cap issue in the midpoint, I think, is a serious
That's-
policy discussion. But I also push back on that and say, if you're within the compensation budget, I see a strong argument and an important reason for the executive director of the ACG to be able to not be hamstrung by midpoint of market. But ultimately, it's a budget number for compensation for employees and that manager's role to adequately manage and hire the best people for the future of the organization and affect the goals that are established by the board. And it is not the board's role to figure out whether, grade 6 should be, and, individual A should be at step 3 or 14. That's, well beyond what we should have our noses in.
Well said.
Well said. But here's why we're in the workshop and to the board. because some of these aspects, especially on page 5, if I'm proposing to get rid of the cost of living and steps, I'd like us, you have to approve as a board this personnel guidelines. So it's a little bit of a preview to have the back understanding of changing from A to B and going away from steps to market. I need some changes in the personnel guidelines. So why I took it to the board is to anticipate the board asking some of these background questions. But eventually, the request of the board will be budget. So when I don't say cost of living and budget anymore, the board will say, well, whatever happened to that? And so the attempt is to give a little bit more information to the board. But I absolutely agree with the three of you. The board doesn't need to get into the every grade, every step. And that's why we're offering it as part of a workshop, and we did before as a workshop and also for the executive committee. And so with that guidance, we can boil it down a little bit when we take it back to the board to say we have a couple of changes in the personnel guidelines. We're going from version A, which is the old step system. Anybody wants to hear that, they can come to the workshop. And we're going to a new system, which is more on quartiles in a different range of grades. But
I would, just politically and to sell it better, I'd say you're not changing your systems, you're updating the structure.
well said. Okay.
You're not scrapping this job description, classification, and pay grades. You're just updating it and changing it. And
Updating to current standards.
The big decision that is important, that is a board decision, is the reversal of the midpoint cap. And I think that is worthy of the board's consideration. And frankly, I'm supportive of it, but I'm supportive of removing it.
But that's more of a budget decision.
No, it's a policy decision.
It's a
that will
policy,
then
yeah.
impact.
It is a policy.
It is a policy decision.
And I
that
would
will
not
impact
present
budget.
it inside of the budget.
Right.
Because I think that it helps inform you to come up with your budget as to where you want to go with that information. If the board adamantly said, no, we want to stay with that midpoint cap, that's going to inform
Right.
how you present a budget to us.
Okay, that's good.
Well, it gives you the flexibility to retain key people.
All right, that's a great overview. So now for the dreaded details.
So where we go from the weeds into the roots?
Yep.
Yeah.
Very deep.
So,
Sorry.
We'll get in the nitty-gritty here in a minute.
yes, Barb's going to pass out
She's going to pass out.
handouts.
Don't stand up too
survey-
fast.
two survey descriptions from the Mountain State Survey. And I'm going to, well, let me introduce myself first. I'm Judy Cruz, compensation consultant with Mountain States Employers Council. So I'm very pleased to have worked with Rob and Barb. We're going on 2 years here, I think. So hopefully we're coming close to this out. Again, it's mainly a structure change, but it impacts everything. Going into administrative assistant. And I'm sort of going to use that example. Some of you haven't even seen their job descriptions before. It sort of at one point was the top page. Are you finding it?
Yeah, not
Oh,
that.
that's-
Not that one. Oh,
Don't have that one.
Yeah.
no, that must be a previous handout. Here we go.
Like that. There you go.
Yeah, so there was some question raised, I forget who raised it at the last meeting, but they were concerned, that our job description's current. He had experienced someplace where everybody had the same job description, so. Barb, they had done a cleanup of job descriptions when we started in 2014.
I remember hearing that comment.
Yeah, it was to the right of me, I don't remember his name.
I don't remember who it was.
It was Merv.
Was it
Merv?
Bill Murray?
Yeah, I believe it might have been.
Yeah, okay. So I want to assure you, the first thing we ask for are current job descriptions. Sometimes They don't even have job descriptions, and I have to write them job descriptions for them. But you all had job descriptions, they all were recently updated, should be looked at every couple of years. But this just gives you an idea of what I receive to do the job matching. So I review your job descriptions, and then I go into the survey data to try to find a match. You know, sometimes titles are similar. You know, I have an administrative assistant, wonderful. There's a lot of times they don't match up that easily, so we take a little of this and that. So I'm gonna just keep referencing this administrative assistant so you can just track all the way through. You also have 2 pages of financial survey descriptions. One will say general support at the top, and one will say financial. And this is just copied, again, from the Mountain State Survey books. And the top one, I want to use the general support one, because about midway down the page on the left side, you're going to see an administrative assistant 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. And you can see there's 4 levels of administrative assistant. Next, you have what are called market matches. This is like a spreadsheet. And when I go into surveys based on these job descriptions and find what I think are market matches. And then, my first meeting with Barb and Rob, we go through this and confirm the market matches. And take a look at the market matches, and you're likely to see the job title, survey number, and you'll see percent weight of match. So when we looked at this administrative assistant job and you read it, it's got receptionist duties in it. It's also got some admin duties. So we looked at it, we feel it's certainly above administrative 1, it's above a 2. We thought it fit with a 3 level and also with the receptionist survey description. So we signed 40% weight to the admin 3 and 60% to the receptionist. And if you move on down to the accounting clerk, again, that job is covered under your finance description there. We took a combination of the accounting clerk 1 and the accounting clerk 2, and we just assigned it 50-50. And the reason we're signing these weights, because again, it'll give us a market number. Show 50% of the rate for the accounting clerk 1 and 50% for the 2, and then we just average it. If you'd like to take a minute, just glance at survey job titles. You can see policy and communications program assistant, job and admin job, counselor. We also use the journey caseworker level. Your transportation plan program services administrator. Administrator 2 level and business support 4. This website publications coordinator, that's one of the jobs. I'll just give you a heads up that does need an adjustment to minimum. Using match the desktop publishing, the web coordinator, and also that graphic designer. It's a pretty, what I call mixed bag there. But you're paying, that's high priced on the market. The second page. Analyst. Again, we took a 50% split on that and went with the journey level and the senior.
What's the slot position on the?
Oh, when you slot, there's no job match. So it gets slotted based on internal equity. If we don't, rather than force a match, we just soon slot it internally. So there's no good data. Yeah, that joint one.
Not a lot of joint line use people around?
Finers. So you're better to do it internally.
It's only been, this is the only study in Colorado. Luckily, they're planners.
So this is
But
what
he's
we
doing a
call
heck of a job.
the market match. A lot of time is spent on this, getting our matches like we want them, and getting the weightings how we want, we think is realistic. And again, I have to keep reminding the people I'm working with to please, we're looking at the job, so don't think about the person that's in the job, and that's hard to do sometimes, but we're trying to evaluate the job, not the person. Any questions on market match or that step?
Did that for every position.
That's a lot of work.
Several times, several rounds.
Barbara and I, it was harder for us because we know the people.
Yeah,
Judy's a little hands-off. She's like,
I'm more objective.
yes. That's why you're here.
So I'm going to have you move on to the legal size spreadsheet. And this one's called market data. The information in this market matches sheet is also over here on market data. So we just use this to do the weightings. And then we move on to, and so after we've done that, then again, I go back and pull the data if we made, pull the survey market data if we made any changes. So I'm just going to read across here. I'm going to start in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see that market data adjusted to 4116, top upper right in red font. And again, that's the ECI, Employment Cost Index, and that's the number we get from BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics. And it's the upper right-hand corner,
Adjusted to what now?
It's BLS, comes from Bureau of Labor Statistics,
Okay.
and they provide a quarterly update of just salary movement.
Okay. All right.
It's not cost of living, it's not CPI, it's just salary. Okay? And Rob has decided if you look right below that, you'll see a survey date.
Right.
And a lot of those, looks like they're all coming from 2014. That's when we started this. But to get you current, we have aged the market data
Right.
1.8% to bring all the data to April 1 of 2016. So I just want you aware of that factor, even though you might see different survey dates in here, but it's looking like these are all primarily 2014. So I'm going to take you back over to the left side. Again, you can see the proposed grades, grade 10, 20, 30, 40, that's highlighted. Job titles below it. And the next column, the current pay band that they're in, is if we look at administrative assistant, when you see non-exempt in EX, non-exempt is just non-exempt, it's hourly. Those are the folks that are paid time and a half. And then if you see an EX, that's for exempt. Those are salaried employees.
And why do you have both non-exempt and hourly, like in grade 10?
Because they're hourly employees, they're part-time.
I'm sorry, we put hourly in there just for the part-timers. There's two part-timers.
Okay, hourly is part-time, non-exempt is full-time.
Yeah.
What is the annual salary now that exempts?
It's doubling, as you know.
Yeah,
I say 47.5.
but has that already taken effect?
That goes into effect 12/1.
Yeah, December.
Okay. And what is it currently?
24,000 something. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a killer. And it's 47, 475 or something. I just say 47.5.
Huh?
Yeah, get ready. It's,
It's going to change the classification of some of our employees.
you will be in
Grade 10, 20, 30, maybe 40.
Okay, so
It's a
I'll show
federal,
you.
roll back a little bit here, because this is something I didn't,
When I show you the salary structure, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
See where
we're anticipating,
where the line's gonna
the feds are implementing it across the country.
so the feds have mandated that anyone, above a certain grade, a certain salary level.
Below
annual-
a certain salary will be paid time and a half.
hourly, correct.
if
Yeah,
you-
they'll be classified hourly employees.
Regardless of your type. So a lot of restaurants, you're called the manager, but you're 3/4 of the time the front,
Right,
and you make $30,000.
yeah.
And you work 60 hours a week, and you don't get overtime. No more.
So now, okay, all right, so before, if you were paid below a certain level,
24,000.
24,000, you were hourly and you could get time and a half. But if
No,
you're,
Yeah, they could call you manager and not pay you time and a half.
okay, that's what I'm trying to understand. What changed here? What exactly is,
Going forward now, it's FLSA. It's the Fair Labor Standards Act,
uh-huh,
which governs.
yeah,
This is the first time I've heard the name of it. I just knew it was happening.
Yeah,
It's coming.
FLSA, but it governs minimum wage and overtime.
whoops, I keep kicking this thing.
So,
Not me.
again.
I
got my
do.
foot on my table.
24,000 was set up, goodness, 20, 30 years ago, whatever, but yes, and there's almost still a lot of pushback going on that SHRM, the HR group, is pushing back and they're trying to get them to do it in increments. Don't go from 24 to 47, phase it in, do 5,000 this year and 10,000 next year or something, but it looks like it could change. Hillary's for it, so she's in it, you're gonna get it, you're gonna keep it. If Trump's in, it could change, but right now, it's a.
What about if Johnson gets elected?
Yeah, well, we'll have to see what happens.
All bets are off.
Yeah. So anyway, 47.5 is the number. It's just the biggest impact is retail, restaurants, nonprofits. I mean, it affects everybody. So you have to make a decision that if someone makes 45,000 and you currently have them exempt, you have to go in and look at, you have to ask them how much overtime you've been working. And there's spreadsheets to do this, but you have to figure out if they're working 10,000, if you have to pay them, say, $10,000 to offset their overtime, are you better off to move them from 45,000 to 47.5 and keep them exempt? But I caution you, don't throw money at it, because the salary test is only the first test. You could be 60,000, and they could still get you for, not truly being exempt. So the salary test is just step one. So
Really?
Just step one, yes.
What else is coming?
Oh, there's lots.
Huh?
So they did not change what's called the duties test.
The who, what, where?
Duties, what you do.
Your job tasks.
Duties include, but are not limited to.
Right. So there are 5 types of exemptions. There's a computer exemption, there's sales, there's executive, if you supervise a department, manage 2 or more people. There's professional,
I want to go to work at the unemployment department because I know I'll have a job forever.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's going to impact a lot of people are going to lose jobs. But, so you have professional, but it's got to be advanced learning. It's not just because you have a degree. It's got to be a CPA, a doctor. Teachers get an exception. Very few professionals. Okay? Then there's a creative one, too, for the artistic. And then the other one, the fifth one, is administrative. And that's when you see these $1 million lawsuits. Someone has to pay back wages. Starbucks had to. They throw people into the administrative exemption, which is sort of the catch-all. It's got to be decision-making, discretion and judgment. And you also usually have to do this at a high percent of the time. So, if I'm supervising, if I'm doing clerical administrative, 60% of the time.
Then you gotta hire somebody else to do their job, so what have you gained?
We won't go into it, but yes.
We're not proposing that change.
Yeah.
We're,
But you do have some.
we're
that
looking
will
at
be-
it to see what it means for us.
Yeah, you will have some people impacted.
Oh, my
So you
gosh.
have to take a look at that for, when you do budgets, it's not.
Barbara and I will have to take a look at that.
Right, yeah, yeah.
In case.
I've given-
So, so the 30 hours on medical has forced people down into the part-time arena, and this, as you're saying, just might force them into
Full-time.
full-time.
Right, and the reason for it, because there's, you can't prorate. If you're paying exempt manager 60,000, and they're working 30 hours, they might not meet the test. And you have to then go in and look at those part-timers every quarter and figure out the difference, and you get a one-time payment. So everybody that's got exempt part-timers are moving them to full-time.
My head's hurting.
I know.
Barbara,
Once you get this all figured out,
Call me.
Well,
we'll have
it's
coffee.
more, yeah,
Yeah.
it's more than head hurting, it's gonna hurt wallets here, because
Oh, big time. big
this
time.
is gonna,
Right. Because if you're forced to pay time and a half, you can't afford as many
you
people.
can't afford them,
Right.
and they're gone.
Right. So the.
Or you
then-
classify them
But
as,
that's why
Or you
in
classify 'em as-
SHRM, the Society for Human Resources, is pushing back, because there's more concern. It will benefit some people that are working 60 hours. And then
Obviously, they didn't take their freshman class for congressmen, which is the unintended consequences.
A fallout, right. So there's going to be more people losing jobs, probably, than helping, but it's a fine line. Yeah, it's a biggie and it's coming.
Well, I didn't know this was, I did not know that this was coming,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
it's been
It's been a long
percolating.
time coming. a couple
It's been
years.
percolating.
It's been pushed off. It was supposed to be August, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
August
It's-
and-
They were only going to give you a 3-month turnaround time to implement. And
Oh,
they
that's-
pushed
The more
it.
people read it, the more
And so I think it
details.
finally got published June.
Yeah,
They
federal-
gave you 5 months.
Yeah, the Federal Register finally showed up.
Yeah. so-
Okay,
Anyway,
so now it is federal law, we have to implement it
Yeah.
by
December 1st.
December 1st.
And so we're being
Oh, it's-
educated on see what it means for us in our budget, and that's 3 of us. But,
Every time we turn around, I think that these guys are just,
yeah.
you just send them all back to basic economics 101 or something.
So,
Gosh.
let's go back to your market data
I'll
sheet.
trade you 2 cucumbers for a radish.
So I'm back to
But the
current
markets for
payment.
radishes in my house is
You can see,
Limited.
again, the grade and the exempt or non-exempt status. Next to that is your board-approved midpoint. It's coming right off of this sheet, okay, your spreadsheet of your current range structure. So next to that current approved midpoint with the administrative assistant, your midpoint right now is 38,932. My market data is telling you it's 36,639.
I'm sorry, where are you at?
Top row?
Top row, grade 10? Okay. Right.
Just going across on the left
All right.
side, 38,932. So your current midpoint's a little higher than my current market midpoint. This is just a reference point,
Mhm.
okay? So we can get a quick feel of what's really moved. The part-timers, that accounting clerk, my market's a little lower than yours. You're coming in at 42. 766, I'm coming in at 39. Moving on down to grade 220, policy communications program assistant. Again, you're at 42.7, I'm at 41.8. Not a big difference. Insurance program specialist, that job got eliminated, but market was coming in a little less. Ombudsman, 48 versus 47. Again, not a big difference. If I get down to that program development administrator, you're at 42, we're coming in with market at 48. So again, that's a job that will benefit from the new compensation program. Your senior info and assistance center care manager, we're coming a little less than your market at 54. Your accountant, we're just a little less. Contract administrator, 54, 53, not a big change there. That website and publications coordinator, you know, that I mentioned earlier, that's a big change. You've got it currently in a grade with a midpoint of 42, market saying 54. So that's one of the biggest changes, market-wise, compared to what you currently have. If you move on to the next, page 2, you find the mobility manager, again, that's vacant. The family caregiver, that's a big jump, 54 is your current midpoint, market saying 62. So we'll have to take a closer look at that. Transportation planner, not a big change. Your lead for this money, 54 to 63,000. So again, you can see where the market differences are. Policy communications manager, transportation planner is pretty much right on. And again, there's two grades there, 7 and 8, because we've merged transportation planner 3 and 4 to the senior team of transportation planner. Okay, so go back to page 1. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead and take a quick look at 3 and just see if you've got any concerns or questions. And then we'll take you across what you can.
GIS got quite a jump too.
I'm sorry?
Said the GIS numbers has quite a jump too.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that earlier too.
Yeah, I was alluding to that.
That's,
GIS and information technology.
Those are hot markets.
Those are all, yeah.
Hot, yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you experiencing any turnover in those?
Yes.
You looking for a GIS guy?
Not right now.
Oh,
We're good right now.
Okay. Yeah, you got, if you have one, a good one, hold on to it.
GIS planner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have two different GIS folks. So, yeah.
Which page are you on now?
2 or 3, middle. Andy, you're looking at GIS planner, geographer, analyst one?
Oh, you have those two.
yeah, those numbers jumped up to, there's a pretty good jump in there too.
Yeah, 62 to 68.
Yeah.
And again, we did a blend there.
Yeah.
You know, you can see, well, let's talk about, I'll walk you across the numbers on the page. Go to the middle of the page and you'll see that job title,
Mm-hmm.
survey job title. I'm using on page 2, I'm going to use the GIS job. Go to the left of that and you'll see 59,615
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see 71,000.
Where are you at right now?
Right in the middle of page 2.
Yes.
And we're right,
With the
you see
GIS.
the GIS
Yeah.
analyst
Just go
journey and
across.
senior.
You see coming to the middle.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I'm moving to the left rather
Right.
than the right. And you'll see market came in for that journey at 59,615. And the senior comes in at 71. A big difference. So
The market, yeah.
we felt in reviewing your job description with the survey description that it was a little bit of each. We could have put it at senior and had a market of 71,000.
Okay.
Or we could have made a call and said, no, ours is journey, and put it, you know, at 60,000. Yeah.
I thought in some trades, if one was a journeyman, he was very experienced, not so. Like if someone was,
In trades.
for example, like a journeyman electrician,
In trades. Yeah.
but not,
Plumbers and,
yeah, but not so with GIS.
no, they have junior and then they have senior. I'm sorry, journey and then senior.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, that's very true. Journey level is very high, skilled in the trades industry,
Okay.
plumbers, electricians.
Thank you.
So it matched up with the job tasks of our job description. We said, yeah, there's some of these intermediate ones and then some of the senior. So we blended them and, Judy
So
recommended.
move to the left, and we did a 50% weight on each.
Okay.
So we didn't weight 71 higher or lower. You can see the survey page number, survey job number, And then the next two columns, you'll see a survey number of INC. That tells me, and the next to that is a survey number of orgs. Those two numbers tell me that 29 organizations with 205 incumbents reported data for the journey level GIS. Okay? Below that, you'll see 31 organizations with 115 incumbents or employees reported 71 average for the senior level. So that gives you a feel of number of responses. Now, again, we could have gone to southern Colorado.
That's
and I
more
might have
telephone
had
calls than you
coffee.
can make in the morning.
And I might have had only 5 responses, okay? So this is why we really prefer at least Front Range if you don't want Denver. You know, another option, a lot of Colorado Springs clients do, is they take the Denver Boulder market, and the geographic differential is about 7%, and we just minus 7. And you're gonna probably end up pretty much in the same place. The Front Range takes you from Pueblo to Fort Collins. Yes.
Would it be common in this trade or in this service group that they would travel the Front Range to perform services? In other words, you could have a group that was coming out of Denver to perform services in Colorado Springs?
Oh, sure, I know a lot of people have clients in Denver. I live in Denver and have clients in the spring.
So it's,
And up
So-
to Fort Collins, too.
right, so validates using data from,
I think
The
the
Front
Front
Range.
Range, yeah. And it hits, you know, it'll have Denver in there, but it gets the smaller cities also, so.
Right.
It's just a good ballpark. It's not an exact science. So if we can get you just a ballpark number to keep you competitive. Okay, it might vary a couple thousand annually, but, you know, that's about as close as you're gonna get. And same way on the job matches, you look at those and it's not gonna have every single duty that your job does in this survey, but we're also looking at skill level. Is there a degree required? If they're supervising, are they supervising exempt, are they supervising non-exempt? So, there's a lot of different things we look at to make that final call on that match. But this gives you some pretty good examples. Look just above that, and you'll see a grants program director, and that direct services team lead, and it's got a red asterisk.
Which page are you on?
I'm right at just above the GIS.
Oh, you're, oh, one page.
yeah, and there's,
Still back on page 2, okay.
Yeah.
and then right
Red
here is this
asterisk.
red asterisk.
Yeah,
Okay, and just follow straight up to the top of the page, and that asterisk is saying it denotes
Small
a
sample.
small sample size of less than 30. We'd like to have more than 30, it's just more statistically valid. But sometimes we have to use smaller sample sizes. But this is at least mixed in with program, and again, the reason that's so small, it's coming from the nonprofit survey. And those are just much smaller number of samples.
What's the negative 10% next to that grants
next to the
program
grants?
manager?
When
I've been wondering about that.
When we reviewed the description, we found that, first of all, this is a director level. It was a higher level than our direct services team lead. So we discounted it 10. If you look down below, facility specialist, right below the GIS, we put a plus 20. Again, your facility specialist is more than what that description is. So you can increase it or discount it. So the most we ever go is plus or minus 20%. Average is around 10 to 15, where we adjust the numbers. And then if you keep moving to the left here, I'm going to go back to the GIS. So we've got the sample size, number of orgs. Then you get to an adjusted survey weighted average. of 29,808. Do you see that for the journey level analyst?
Yes.
And right below that, 35,860 for the senior level? That is just 59,615 weighted, and that's half of that is 29.
Right.
The next column to your left, 29,808, becomes 30,000 because we aged it. So that's the age number. We add up average 30,037. I'm sorry, we add 30 and 37. And that's how you, in the green there, you get your market average of 68.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's sort of awkward to read from center to left, but that's where all the data is. So any question on, again, how the market data comes together, how the averages? We tried hard to get you a pretty good mix. I'm looking at the senior transportation planner at the bottom, page 2. We pulled some data from public employers. We pulled a GIS out of the Information Technology Survey. And we pulled a planning manager and the senior planner. And if you want to go on to page 3, I don't want to pick on Rob, but I want to address the executive director there when you see that tan color across the bottom of the page there. That's just telling you it's not in my average. I wanted to share the data, but I did not use it because it was so high. It's what I consider an outlier. And when something is way high and way low, you throw it out. But you can see what that's coming in at for nonprofits, total responses. So for his job, which is the one you all have to approve, I used a CEO extract from public employers. I used a CEO, the chief COO with an executive VP and EVP from public employers. And then I used the executive director, president, CEO from the nonprofit. But I used it from human services. You see my data line there, my total responses, and then human services. So I think that number is probably the best fit, again, for Rob's job. But I averaged in the others to get you a little larger sample size, since it was just below 30.
And she didn't let me change it.
No, he didn't have anything to say, I guess, but I just wanted you to know when you're trying to figure out what to approve for Rob.
But if you want to put the outlier in, you go ahead.
Does he still qualify for time and a half?
No,
Not yet.
yeah, there's a high salary test that now goes up over 100,000.
Really?
He'll make it, but, yeah, that went way up too.
So that 192, forget about it.
So,
Yeah,
again, I think
she
that-
told me, I was like, what is that position?
I think that human services, and again, 28 isn't too bad for a sample.
Wasn't
size.
that oh boy, it was all the former Quest, wasn't that? Like one of those huge companies? You told me once of what that outlier was, and I can't remember, or a couple of
Oh, no,
examples
that's
of it.
just the average for nonprofit in Denver. But it can be, $1 million nonprofits and
You showed me the top.
Well-
$1 million nonprofits.
Well, yeah, that's, I was about to ask you, yeah, how do you, when you're doing this, are you looking at nonprofits that have a similar number of employees and budget?
Yeah, it's sometimes we can get budget numbers, like they'll say up to 5 mil, 5 to 10.
Right.
But then half the time, there's no data there, because they gotta have 5 or more to report the data. So
Yeah.
nobody can be identified, so Yeah,
Well,
but
yeah,
I
that's where it
think-
gets a little weak in there, is because you got a pretty wide variety of.
Yeah. So I think the average between, again, 140 and 170 and the annual basically comes out. I think that's a pretty good midpoint. And when I show you that, that's, again, it's not the starting minimum, that's the market rate.
Right.
Okay, any other questions? We got a pretty good understanding of where all the
Yep.
numbers are coming from?
Mhm.
So you never have to go through this again in your life?
So when the question is asked at the board meeting, some of us can take a break, right?
Well, or you could say it looked like it was a legit process.
It looked like it was well, I don't think anybody had any question about that. It was just,
Well, I have some concern that some were sort of questioning the methodology or that, but it's.
Yeah, what were the job matches, I think was.
Yeah.
But I would challenge the staff not to open that up to
Right.
board discussion. That is something that the executive director should get counsel, as they have, from mountain states to inform their decisions as executive director, not for us as a board to delve into this and look at market survey and such, and
Yeah.
bringing it up at the board and presenting this information. You're then asking the question of, well, show me the demographics of the Front Range, survey information. It's like, if we question Rob's judgment on whether or not this is good
Yeah.
market data, that's a performance issue that we bring up with our executive director, but not whether or not
Yeah.
we delve into the survey
Well-
data that that Rob secured to inform his decisions.
I agree. That's
Well,
where we were headed
I
last
agree.
time, but there was enough board
Yeah,
questions.
we tried to do just high level with a couple handouts so you could, just get, see where we landed
I tried to
without
punch
going
it
into the
through last
detail.
time. I had a motion on the
So
floor.
this grid I'm sharing with you again. And this
Motion was
presented
accepted,
at
right?
the last
yeah,
board
that's what I thought so.
meeting. Just to give you an overview, do you need one more?
And one,
I gave
Of course, the people who raised questions aren't here.
I'm sorry.
Nothing, keep going. I was commenting on them.
So
The
for
board
the
meeting.
next board meeting, I want to be really clear about what we're going to share in nutshell. Again, this position grid, which I shared at the last meeting, tells the whole story without all the nitty-gritty detail.
Right.
It shows you the salary range. And again, we can take that range off, most clients want it on there, but it shows you the ballpark. And again, the board doesn't approve anything here except Rob. So do they need this grid, is my
No.
question.
Absolutely.
Like you say, it stirs up more questions,
That's right.
raises more issues, but this is to let you know that, Rob, when we did this, we had to look vertically and horizontally. We were, he can take this grid, go meet with transportation and planning, make sure that manager's in agreement, this is how your jobs are falling out. But then we also had to look across departments to make sure that made sense also. I don't want Joe's admin assistant, in a grade 80, and someone else's admin assistant in 40. Okay, so there's some skill levels that's the main purpose. This is what, usually, without names or anything, this is what's usually shared with board of directors.
So it doesn't have to be,
No. And again.
unless they ask and they want to have a workshop, and that's why we're here.
No, and sometimes with that methodology report, I'll show you that again, that narrative. We just shared that.
No, I'm fine with that. I think it's valid to bring, when you're bringing a large shift, as, part of this, there's a legitimate board decision. Most of this, quite frankly, is info,
Right?
board info. That you want to make sure the board is aware that you're making a shift in the structure. People are going to want to say, well, we ought to vote on that. Okay, fine. But, yeah, I mean, some of us have now dug in and say, yes, it's a valid study, valid methodology. And that's really all we need.
The next handout I just gave you, again, we can move through this fairly quickly. This is called a position listing or a hierarchy. And once we move off of the market data sheet that we just reviewed, you will again see the job titles, you'll see the weighting, you'll see the survey titles. Next to that, you'll see the average of survey matches. This is what I use to determine my grade cutoffs. So all my jobs in the high 30s here became grade 10. My average for grade 10 there, all three of those jobs came out to 38,685. So because employees wonder, why did I end up in pay grade 5 instead of pay grade 10? Okay, this is why, this is where your market data fell. Yes?
Did any employees suffer a cut because of this?
No.
Some of them maybe even saw a nickel more in their paycheck if this were adopted?
Anything.
No,
The way
okay.
it works out.
Yeah. But if this was adopted, would they see a nickel more?
There's a few cost of minimum adjustments that are highly recommended so that you can start hiring at the new rate.
But this would be the $15,000. Okay.
And then the rest, then they'll cost more when you do your annual merit or salary adjustments, whatever you want to call them,
Okay.
in the new range. But to actually implement with the new structure, and the phase one is get to minimum, next time, start making some progression into the range based on what I call equity adjustments, because you're going to have Susie sitting here that's been there 5 years, maybe making what Joe's making was just hired. And so you gotta deal with the pressure.
Yeah.
So if you have the money to do it, but that's what she talked about. It takes 1, 2, 3 years to phase in. That's what you're phasing in, is compression issues. So that if they've been here 5 years, they should be at closer to midpoint, assuming top performance or good performance.
Same.
This is a much more fundamental question, but why do we care about having salary grades?
I think you asked me that last time. It's mainly just a management issue. Now, I have had, where they only had 10 jobs or 10 employees, it ended up that each person had their own grade. Or range.
My simplistic looking would be, you do it based upon these positions, and that is the midpoint for that position.
But to
And
me-
who cares if we manage? What's the management benefit to having anything related to grade 10? Obviously, that lumps these 3 or so positions together. Why? Why do we care?
Why?
that they're
Because you
lumped
want to look
together?
at market average.
But why wouldn't we look at market average for the position?
Well, they're all in the 30s. I mean, they're going to
Oh,
average 38.
I see where you're going.
38, And then I'll show, and then we move
But
that over to.
what does the 38 do for us based on the 10, that the 36.6, the 39.5?
Well,
the
again, if you want
39.8?
50 salary ranges, I don't think you do.
Well, we have 50 positions, so you got to manage 50 positions.
Well, I know, but you don't need 50 salary ranges. The most companies have
What,
this.
what do the salary ranges do to help? Because you're not going to hire a accounting clerk based upon the 38 versus the admin assistant on 38. You're going to hire based upon the 36 and the
Let
39.
me give you the range chart that comes from this as we move to the next step. Again,
So you'll be overhiring you'll be overcompensating for one than the other if you use
Another
the
person.
average, right.
Yeah.
This is a ballpark average. The person, the administrative assistant job that's average is 36 is going to benefit a little more when the total average comes at 38. And so the program assistant, whose job has gone away, with a market average of 39, is going to get hurt a little, because it's less, and that's what you're saying,
and
right?
I'm
That's what-
asking for the defense of the salary
Yeah.
grades as to why we want to do that. Because why wouldn't we just say we're hiring an admin assistant level 3 the market survey says that it's 36, and that's going to inform our decision about how to compensate
Yeah,
that position.
well, I've
not
never,
the 38.
no one's ever wanted 50 pay grades. So you have to decide pay grade.
But you have 50 pages.
But you happen, yeah, that's, when you get down to it, I see, I think I see where you're going.
No.
Well, no, you
Look
got,
Look at the column that says average of.
Judy, I think the question is why
Survey
group
matches.
them anyway?
why group them at all?
group
Yeah.
That's why you're grouping them, so you have 10 pay grades instead of.
So what good does that do you? Because you still have to drill down to the average
No,
of
you never
age
look at
survey
that average
matches.
again. I mean,
You do, because in order to come back and make adjustments and do this salary survey again, you're going down and drilling down to the job description level, and then you're making adjustments, in your case, to the salary grade adjustments, but why wouldn't you just move it over a column? It's, you take that 1.8% to bring it up to the market value to today. This is, we can simply apply that formula across 50, but it's not, I don't see, you're losing me in the argument of the pay grades. I
It's just a
don't see.
nightmare to lose.
How?
It's just a nightmare to have 50 pay grades for 50 people.
So educate me. How is that a nightmare?
First of all, these jobs are comparable jobs on the market. So that's why you call them job families.
Okay, so the job families are comparable, and that gets them into grade.
You group them.
So what does that do for you?
So this 38 comes over to this, to your salary structure,
Yep.
and then we take that number to decide on our range midpoint. So again, I have 10 grades here. First of all, you had, and these are your 18 steps, right? These are your midpoint.
We had 11 grades.
Well, yeah,
We
but,
had 18.
but I think going where he's going, we had 11 steps, or 11 bands, and you had a whole bunch of steps. You had those anyway. And you're going to have it in here, because you've got pay band 2, pay band 3, and so
Yeah.
forth
If
within
you
the
look on
salaries.
The green, this is your current structure.
Yeah,
There's 20 there, okay?
right.
And you look at your range midpoint, so you had, our salary grade now, 10, is going to, you were 38,000 and you're 42,000, and that's going to become one grade. If you look at grade 30, there were 3 grades, and that's going to become one grade. So we're reducing, and again, if Rob wants to go to 50 grades, we can do that. but-
Why would you call them grades, though? Why wouldn't you just say the midpoint, the average for an administrative assistant 3 is in market 36, and then we have minimum, maximum
Well, you
based
just
upon
reference
that?
grades all the time. You don't go back and look at every dollar every time. You know, if.
I think it's more just HR general practice is
Yeah,
to
it's just
stratify.
good prac- best
'Cause I know
practice,
for a
yeah.
big city or county, you don't list every one of
No,
the
no.
2,000 jobs. You put them in different classifications.
Yeah, I just had one with 800 jobs that we condensed into 40 job families. I mean, it's ludicrous to have 50 ranges. I mean, and they're talking thousands of employees. So, but again, you're small enough, you
Yeah.
can, if that's the way you want to go. But let me show you how we got to this point, and then you can decide if you want to go a different direction. The market average, 38,000 on the salary range chart, carries over from the position listing. That yellow comes over to this yellow. And that's how we decide what the midpoint's going to be for our first grade here. We had made a decision that our midpoint, our minimum, probably, you can start your range at any point that you want in any salary. And we decided $16 an hour is going to be our minimum. So the market data of 38,665 was adjusted upward to 39,1. Again, to get our minimum of 16. There, if you look down at the bottom of the salary structure, you'll see that green footnote at the bottom. It says midpoint's been set above market to maintain the midpoint spread and the internal equity. So there's 2 places where we did this. If you look in grade 80, That market came in 82.2, and we've set that at 85. And again, what we're looking at here, the percent between midpoints, we like to have 10, at least 10%, usually runs 10 to 15. And when you look across, you can see the range spread there on the right-hand side, right next to the yellow. We do the range spread 35% at the lower levels, then we go to 40, 45, 50%, so that the range spread widens as you move up the hierarchy. And the reason for that, again, is that your management, your higher level jobs have a greater impact on the bottom line. So we're looking at percent between midpoint, and we're looking at the range spread going across. So the 43,593 for your grade 20, again, we round up to 43,6. Your 49,978 becomes 48. So we end up basically with 10 grades. If it would be like taking what you have, so we eliminate the steps, but we add 50 grades this way. So you're going from worst to,
And Tyler, we'll look at it.
yeah.
And I guess practically, were I in Rob's shoes, the grades wouldn't have any, I don't see how the grades have any bearing on my actions as an executive director. If I'm hiring for Transportation Planner 1, I am looking at that 53,800 that is in that line there. What bearing does that 53,226 have on my decision making?
Because you're going to here.
Why?
You're going to this salary structure.
Why? Why wouldn't I just
You
stay
want to
there
know
and
what
say?
the market is.
But the market's telling me for Transportation Planner 1 that I'm hiring, you're telling me the market is 53.8. And then you're saying, that's nice, but ignore what I just told you about the market and look at this 53,226.
For the family.
And I don't get that. Why would you do that? You already have the data, then you're aggregating the data, you're diluting it and making.
We're averaging it, correct.
Right, so why going to that level? I just don't, that's a personal choice, but I just don't get
Yeah,
that.
the 800, 1,000 is so insignificant.
That's not my point.
Yeah.
It's not the delta, it's the fact that you already have the data for that position, and you aligned it, taking the time and the care to figure out what the market rate is, and you'd use that for that position, not then compare it to all the other positions around it.
I think one of the reasons that we do this is these positions may change in the future. We may add positions or eliminate positions. So then when you say, I'm going to add a position, well, where does it fit in the range? You don't go back to all of the detail. You go, okay, we're going to add a position and it's going to be in the range of a 40. So then you go over and you go, okay, with a 40 range, you go, okay, that position starts at a 44 or a 61. So you have that range already set for a new position that you're going to create. It makes it much easier than having to go back all the way to the beginning of time and figure out exactly what the whole line is for that.
But I would challenge further that if you're hiring a new position and you're trying to figure out what you can hire it at, you're going to have, a sense of the market, and you're going to then tune that to the market and figure out what you can get that position for. You're not going to be like, oh, we're hiring for something that should have been in the 60 grade, and we're offering salaries in the 10 grade. That's way off market. But you're going to know if it's this particular position with these particular duties in the marketplace, it's going to be about there, and you could even drill down and find out what the current market is for that position.
But you don't want to be able to be creating new grade levels every time you add a position.
I'm saying, what if you deleted grade levels? Well, how would the world fall apart then?
Jesus, that's
Well, see, I don't think it would be a well, I
I
wouldn't.
don't get,
I-
you're not selling me on what it does for you.
When you say be a disaster, but your current system, you've got grades and steps. You've got 100 grades. You already do. So,
It's just.
I'm kind of
job
like,
title.
I'm kind of like in the same boat. You've got salary grades 10 through 100. Well, why not a salary grade 15? I mean, because when you get down to it, you've got using the steps. You already have that.
I mean,
You can call the grades whatever you want.
Well, I know, but I mean, my
there's
point
no,
is.
there's no grade 1 through, there's not a grade 10, 15, or.
No, I know there's not, but I mean,
But
my
it could
point
be.
is on your current system, you actually do, because you have,
We only have 11 grades,
but you have steps.
but steps are only across the grade.
Yeah, you're going
I know,
this
but you
way.
still, but what you're doing is you're throwing the steps out
Correct.
by doing this.
Yeah,
And I'm kind of wondering what the point of that is. Like he's saying, that's.
Yeah, in the
it's-
world of spreadsheets, we
You want an
can,
open
yeah, we could have each position listed.
The
You have a
problem with
minimum,
steps,
maximum, and midpoint.
If after a
That's
year,
market-based, not
if
Right.
you,
families or grades.
steps do not take into consideration my performance.
Oh, no,
That's
I get that. I'm not saying you should have steps. What I'm saying is that you do have 100 grades, when you're saying it's too difficult to manage. Well, you have it now by using the grades and steps.
You have all those cells in a big spreadsheet.
You have those cells in a big section. I mean,
have the
you already
employees
have to
in
it.
each,
But what you're doing in
salary,
here, you are doing
compensate.
an artificial raise to those who are below, in those particular positions. Yeah, if you're below the market average, you're actually stepping them up and you're cutting some others.
Right.
What managers usually get is the salary structure,
Yeah.
or at least the salary ranges for the employees that report to them. So they know anytime they want to hire, if they're going to hire, they look at the job and it's in grade 50, they can hire anywhere between minimum and midpoint is the hiring range.
Oh,
That's the hiring range, okay? I might hire at 50, I might hire at 52, I might hire at 49, based on experience.
yeah.
So the easiest way to communicate and administer is, here's your new hiring range. We aren't going to be hiring in grade 50 at 60,000 unless there's a rare exception with executive approval. But, again, it's.
You have 48 to 68, for
Yeah,
example, in
so
grade
you want
50.
a hiring range for your manager so they can function and feel, they know at least what the ballpark is.
Mm.
And,
But, yeah, we can also look at going, more detail, but we'll.
yeah, and again, if you want to, for me, it's just management administration. But
Right.
you can go to 50 grades, you can go to 100 if you want, yes.
Under the current system, we're locked in to not giving employees a raise above the midpoint because that's mandated by the board. So we would have to have board action to change that. So if we're going to retain key employees, I see that the board will either have to take action on that or adopt this or a third action of some type. Because I don't think we should tie our own hands in a marketplace where key employees can walk and get employment elsewhere. I don't think that's smart. So I don't know that we need to adopt this, but I think we need to do something.
Yeah, I think, and Tyler said it earlier, we'll bring the policy discussion to the board of, the policy consideration, do away with the artificial cap on step 8. And I'm going to plug in a term, allow budgeting, or allow the wage, or allow this system to go to the third quartile instead of step 8.
I don't need, know if I need to use Cortel, that scares people off,
Yeah.
but
Well-
just say open the range.
Or open the range.
Remove the steps and open the range. And you can then reward people for their performance. But
Based on
with
budget.
the- With the step increase, if we're all getting 2%, 2.5, whatever the magic number is, I'm sure not gonna try harder.
You know, they did away with open range in Colorado, don't you?
Really? Oh, the open, yeah. I got it.
Other open range. So we'll come up with a policy
Yeah, so
statement.
come up with something other than open range, because I
And
know.
it's probably going to be, we'll have to look long and hard to see if we can find if the board actually made that policy statement as a board.
Cute.
Because,
Okay, look that up.
I get them, you owe my, you have to buy my car.
I'm also sharing with you what's called the cost summary report, the blue page, and behind it is a detailed cost
The
analysis.
blue page. Oh, this one?
On top.
Okay.
This again is shared primarily with boards. They want to see the range. They want to see the grades, the jobs, how the jobs fell out. And then over on the far right, you'll see the actual cost of minimum. And this is the number where I told you, if you look across to the Program Development Administrator, on your left, the job title on your right, it's going to cost $798 a year to get that job to minimum. If you go down to that website, Publications Coordinator, I showed you that needs to go up. It's going to cost $2,330. Your Transportation Planner, again, $573. If there's more than one person in this job, it could mean that this is getting spread out, but most of these are just one-person jobs. Policy Communications, $1,400. That AAA director. So this is where your 14,000 is coming from that we have referenced earlier. And then if you look behind it, you'll see the actual calculation by employee. Again, I've removed employee names, but you can see how we are. This will also, at the end of this green one, you'll see at the very bottom, the total on the page 2, the cost of minimum. It's also showing you the cost of midpoint. That's where you want to go. The bottom 2, total cost of min, 14,000. Total cost of midpoint is 214,000. At the bottom of page 2. So, for future, some use it for strategic planning, future budgeting, however.
That's a big number.
And what's your total cost above maximum?
That's who's over max of the range. And there is, if you go back to page 1, you'll see that.
There's a few folks that are, according to market,
I'm sorry, look at the green page. Your cost analysis page. It's the accountant part-timer. There's one part-timer here. You can see the detail at the top. Go to you see that there, right at the top?
Administrative assistant?
No, the accountant.
Oh, part-time hourly. I got you.
Accounting clerk, there's 2 of them. One of them's at $3,689 over the new range. And I'm going to back up just a quick second on the salary chart. Behind it. And I think how I talked was a little confusing last time, but, so, again, this would be the new one. Behind it, it actually shows your current pay bands. It's a one with, no, that's the cost. Keep that attached to the one you have there with the grant. Yeah, those two go together, those are costs. And then you'll find this salary structure.
Salary range chart.
Okay.
It's called.
Well, there you go, right underneath.
Oh, that one?
So, yeah, and I just want you to take a look at the second page, if
Smaller
someone
print.
wants to look closer. In the red font are your current pay bands. and I placed those above the new recommended range. So again, you can see some are going down, some are going up, but the overall impact, again, pay band 6, 7, and 8, you know, are gonna end up in grade 70. Those pay bands, there's just not enough market difference to give them grades. Now, if you wanna go the other direction, then you just set up all your grades, or get every job a grade. But this is just comparing for you, so you know that, you know, it's not pushing, if you take that cap off, it's not going to, you know, triple the cost, you know, employee cost. It's, the impact goes down. Some grades it goes down, some it goes up. In the end, the 15,000 annually is very, really insignificant budget impact, yes.
Okay, but if you, okay, let's say we take the executive director and we drop him back to a grade 9. Does that mean that individual would never get back to a grade 10 or a grade 11?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Yes, because that position is banded within those grades.
I'm sorry?
The position is banded with, is grouped into that grade family.
Oh,
It is a family of one, though.
It's, that's my argument is, no one sold me on what the point of the
Right.
grades are. It's like the executive director is compensated, the market average is this point, this is the minimum, this is the maximum. Why do we care about the grades?
Right.
I don't
Okay,
see
so as
the
long
Oh,
as
so
this,
what you're saying, you really want free floating ranges
no, I was just asking,
without a grade number.
Based on market.
You
Based on
eliminate
market,
term-
yeah.
Yeah, use the
You
position
just
of
don't-
executive director
So
is
you just don't
market
want
is
the
this,
grade
minimum,
numbers here.
and to the right side of your sheet.
well, you just said you were
Or
going
yellow,
to
sorry.
combine
Oh, excuse me.
like
that's a different sheet.
three grades, like 7, 8, and 9?
I'm challenging the policy decision on item 3A1 and appropriate pay grade.
I'm sorry,
Do we want
which
that?
page are you on?
What's the point of having those words in there?
Either which page, or which document?
Compensation guidelines,
Oh,
A1,
He's in
pay
personnel
grades.
guide.
Okay.
I'm waiting, it would be, I'm curious, and it's not a hanging point for me, but it would frustrate me to go through these steps to be straddled with forcing ourselves into pay grades. What we really care about is market, and that we're not overcompensating, not undercompensating, that we're not turning through a lot of positions. So we need to have job description, to have classifications, and then we require the executive director to be informed by market rates. And I'm not sold on why we then need to stratify into grades. I'm not sure what help that does to the organization, other than, you know, it does obfuscate who is in where, because then you can advertise and say, we're advertising for, you know, this position, it's this title, and it is on our salary grade number 60, which is from 54-1 to 62-2-3. But ultimately, you're going to be interviewing John Smith and saying, John Smith, we want to offer you 56-1-3. You know, it comes down to an individual negotiation between the successful candidate and, you know, the position available, and that position and those salary ranges that you offer are going to be informed by the market. I'm failing to see the benefit of the grading, you know, and that whole structure. That
Sure.
is
And it could just,
mandated by the
each
policy.
position can exist on its own.
That's right.
And that could be the pay grade for its position. So this could, the personnel guidelines could stay the same. It's the definition or application. You know, Judy's put it in pay grade, converting it from the other pay grades, 1 through 11 versus 10 through 200. But using a spreadsheet, you would just say each position is its own, has its own pay grade, which was at market.
Based on market, yeah.
And it's just a longer spreadsheet with, you know, it's only about 30. So 30 line items of each and every position. and then you don't have to squash them together. Again, I get it. In the industry, it's a standard practice. So,
And I'm just offering my bias. If I were in Rob's seat, that's the way I'd approach it, but it's up to Rob as to how he wishes to administer it, and I think I would, if he's so interested, maybe striking that language from personnel guidelines, the pay grades, and eliminate that unless there's a strong defense for why we, as an organization, want to have pay grades.
or redefine it, pay grade is by position.
Could be. But
Yeah,
then
and-
then it's redundant, right?
Again, it's
It
like
is.
a.
Then it's redundant, yeah.
You have a job description, you have a market value, and you have a maximum minimum. I'm
That's
just
what it
challenging
is.
why. Because then you go through this delineation of, here's these pay grades, and these are the 10 through 100, and I think it's an
Well,
artificial
I'll give you
structure.
another frame of reference on that. I was, the company that I used to work for way back when, we had about 300 people in the division, and we operated off of 10 federal contracts. Each one of those 10 federal contracts had its own specific structure on what you could pay people, and they did. They had 10, 15 grade positions and ranges, and we had 10 contracts like that, and they were all different. So we had 100. We had 100 different positions.
Sure. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, for the number of jobs.
Well, I mean,
But I think.
I mean,
what
But
But
you
it could
see-
be done.
Yeah, it could be, and what I think.
yeah, it's just
what
work for her,
Tyler-
right?
What Tyler is asking.
She's not saying
if I'm
anything.
Getting this correctly, to me, it's a freestanding range. You are collapsing, consolidating, merging into a job family, or like jobs. Usually similar jobs are grouped together to do your market average. And
Okay.
that's what you don't want, because it's true. If my market average is 35,000, yours is 38, and you're 39, and we get put in the same pot, I'm gonna benefit from you being at a higher market, and, yeah. Usually the difference is, again, a few thousand is not that significant on an annual, if you're making 30,000 it is, but that's why they do market average, and the best thing I can do is just for administration. But yes, you can have freestanding, and for identification, when I want to talk to a manager about a job, we're always talking, what grade? We want Susie from grade 10 to here. I don't want to go go look at this midpoint from 40,000 to 42. So again, it's a reference point and for administration, but yes.
Well, I think the other
You can
part
have as
is,
many grades as you would like.
the other, when you go to market to check it, I'll pick on our ombudsman.
Yeah.
If you have one data point for ombudsman, you need to be more in a family, because otherwise it's one data point.
Yeah.
So how do you do, you compare it to the one in Denver, and that's all you can, or do you pull it down and bring it into the family so you get more data points for that range?
Yeah, and you get a.
To me, that's beneficial.
you get a
Otherwise,
better-
you-
Better average.
You got one position that's like, okay, we got not enough data points, so,
Yeah, some you aren't gonna have anything, yeah. So if you could group them together.
I think where we have an eclectic mix of positions, planners are planners, but, we have ombudsmen and some caseworkers. They're different. They need to be part of a family, I think, only for just to get the data.
Rather than
Otherwise,
standalone.
yeah. Standalone, I think that would be the problem when we go back to market. We would probably find handful, dozen, I don't know how many positions. We'd have to look through
You
to
have a
say,
lot of unique combos, there are many ads. It's probably more.
but like I said, we'll look at it and I'll let you know.
Appreciate the suggestion. We got to wrap up here, but I want to share with you the matrix, which you saw, performance matrix. Again, we're not going to share this, I don't think, with the board again, in a board meeting, but this is what you would move towards a pay-for-performance system. And in this matrix, again, you can see you're getting much higher percent increase if you're below market, below midpoint. As you go above market, it slows down a little. There's also an option here for a lump sum increase. There are top performers. People are still top performers, and sometimes when they're at the max, but they're good employees, you want to keep them. We recommend a lump sum payment don't increase their base pay. It's called the lump sum bonus, the lump sum payment, which is sort of like Rob's merit. And you would put the merit bonus here, again, for that top performer, if they're maxed out in the range, so that they could still get something. And then along with that, I'm showing you the same salary range chart that we looked at earlier. But when, I just wanted to mention, as remember on the grid here, it talks Q1 and Q2 quartiles, which that word scares some people off. It's just breaking it into fourths. Okay? So this is Q1, Q2, 3, 4. Next to it, I did this chart for you to show you how you can see quartiles in your salary range structure. So anybody, if I'm getting ready to give Susie an increase, I know her performance is a 4, she's a top performer. And so rating 4, and she's sitting in the first quartile, she can have an increase between 0 and 4% based on her quartile.
Where are you? I don't see that paper.
This one that we
It's
just
right
gave you,
This is this one,
This one?
and then you should have something right under it.
This one, okay. Trying to keep up with you here,
yeah,
okay.
so this is the same,
Okay, and this is saying that
this is the
All
same
right.
that
range
you're
chart.
way
I just,
underpaid,
some people
not
have
quite
a
so
hard time
underpaid,
visualizing
and then over here,
how to
you're,
break that range into
you're in your
quartiles.
pay range.
So you look
so
over, you gotta use
you
these
get a
two
bigger
together. And it's
bonus,
very
if you
easy
will.
for managers to understand. So I look, and I first of all have to find the performance rating, and we're saying it's a 5, walks on water, okay? And then I know that, I look at what their pay is, what grade, what quartile they're in here, and say they're in a Q2, which is that number in between here, first quartile and midpoint is Q2. So anyone making between $17.40 and $18.80 tells me they're in Q2, so I go over to my chart, walk on water, Q2, that manager can give that person 0 to 4%. Simple, simple, simple. Managers understand it. Again, they can't give everybody walks on water, but they aren't gonna have the money
Right.
to get to their 3% or their 2%, whatever the number is.
Because this is real money. This is a raise.
Performance-based, correct.
Whereas if you get to the final column, it's a,
Lump sum.
yeah. So, before the executive director could give this, he would have to know the financial impact that this would have for the budget.
Oh, sure. I just send out a salary forecast,
Yeah,
and to all my managers.
And-
And it has the names, and I
and-
tell them, plug in what you want.
and, yeah,
And it has the quartile next to it. It has this increased range next to every name. You distribute, but your bottom line has to be 3% or 2%.
right.
It comes back to the CEO, to the executive director, to approve the number of the board. But they need to go through the exercise, plus they've got to feel they have some input in how to distribute,
Certainly.
rather than being told, don't give them all the same amount, so.
Right.
Yeah, it's very, usually it's.
And so this one's under consideration. Most
For
likely, this would be an
future, yeah.
information item for the board, say, look, we changed how we do our compensation,
Yeah.
you know.
And this
Well,
can't
this
happen
is-
anyway.
yeah, I mean,
We've
this-
got some
this
work
is-
to do, so.
This is just how you administer your
Your paper.
absolutely not a
Yeah.
board decision.
No,
Yeah, I-
that's why I'd say
but I-
information item.
Yeah,
I think this is a great way for you to handle it.
yeah.
But again,
And the reason we share
Not
this
for us.
is it's
Back to
another-
steps, but,
It's
you know.
another control, budget control,
Yeah.
because I know some might say, gee, if we take that cap off, they're all gonna be at the top. And fourth quartile, before we know it, But again, with something to replace it, you know, this is a good budget control item, way to do it. And you tied merit increases in with salary range.
If you knew how hard it was to find money around this place.
I know, I'm very aware of that. Everybody's having a hard time, so. Thank you.
That's the budget process.
Tyler will certainly take that into consideration, you know.
Just thoughts where I am in someone else's shoes.
I know, I
And
understand.
the more important thought that I'd challenge you to consider is what is board policy and what's hindering your ability to implement the things and how you choose to administer the compensation package, and what is information that's informative to the decision makers on the staff side. And the thoughts that I have on whether you do grades and all that is not very fruitful in my mind. You know, if it's helpful to you and you think that that's the best thing since sliced bread, great. But I think that you need to put some serious thought into what is board policy and how we need to change the board policy, and not so much the minutia of most of what was presented this morning is not board information.
Yeah, and I did
Agreed.
not plan to share
That's-
this with the board again.
That's what we tried last board meeting.
Yeah.
It was
We got-
more information.
Yeah,
What would you share with the board for the 14th, whatever's coming out December 14th?
Well, we'll structure the memo for policy considerations to probably change the personnel guidelines, and
So
then,
does it need any of this market stuff?
probably not.
Uh,
Maybe the methodology,
Well,
but they've seen that.
They've got that.
Right. But again, it's any supporting data for policy consideration, the other is just information.
So if
Yeah.
they approve that,
And they don't need
then
all
you
this
can go
information.
forward, right?
yeah.
Let me give you,
Well, what I'm kind of concerned with is a number of questions are raised by various people there.
just so they can.
Fine, that's why we tabled it and came back
Offer this.
and offer this. None of the people who raised questions are here.
That's a great point.
And have they asked for any of the data individually to get that? I mean, in other words,
Or Barb?
Yeah, and I
Any
hate to just
requests for-
email this to everybody.
I haven't found Casey
It
yet.
doesn't make sense, you know.
Rachel, any requests for data from board members on this
No, but
topic?
of course, that's why we recorded this, so that we could send this to those
Right.
who couldn't make it.
Those who want to ask can take a look at this video and hear it.
Right, but are they gonna want all the documents that go with it?
Yes.
well, I mean, I don't want to see this thing get derailed again at the next board meeting by someone coming out there, well, I don't have the data.
Yeah.
So should we yeah, you've recorded this, we're going to send it out and, send the link out. And guys, if you got any questions, ask them before we get to the board meeting so we can take care of this.
Well, I would encourage Rob to do red lines of the personnel guidelines for
Yeah.
consideration.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
leave this salary discussion aside, because this is really him fulfilling this
Yeah.
item E5 salary survey. And the minutia that we got into here is all about this.
Yeah.
And that's his role as executive director to be informed by that and get a market survey of that.
Agreed.
And-
No, and that, this will be an attachment to red line. And I think I told the board that's what they'll get. Everything else, I think, is more just information.
Yeah, and I think having the information there is fine. I mean, a lot of people want to dig into that level of detail, fine. But that's not, like we're saying, that's not necessarily the board decision.
So should we share all this with the board?
I
Well,
think
we're gonna
sending them
send
this
out-
link,
If we're going to send out the video, this conversation that you've had won't have a lot of context or make much sense if they can't refer to the same documents that those who were here in person referred to today.
well, if you send,
In addition, we've presented these documents in what is an open meeting, and so I think it's appropriate under open meeting laws to include those. They have to be part of the record somewhere.
well, in other words, you're going to post the documents. Right, did I read that right?
Or send them to those that ask.
Or send them to those that ask, yeah.
I have not thought about posting them necessarily. What I was suggesting is that they need to go out with the link to the recording of this meeting.
And then ask for anything they want.
Yeah, ask for details.
Yeah, if you post them, that would
I'm,
That would
this
be
is,
fine.
yeah, I mean, I don't have a heartburn with it, but I'm just want to close the loop so we don't have another
So you're
derailment.
saying post all this,
Post what you handed out to us.
I think it's an email link. I don't think I want to post it on the website.
no.
It's for board members
Yes,
and
yeah,
a workshop.
yeah, I agree, I agree. I'm not suggesting you post this on the website,
Oh.
but I'm,
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, under personnel records, you don't release all personnel
no.
details, but it
But-
makes it available
no.
to do that, so.
But for those who raise questions,
Yeah.
give them one more opportunity here before the board meeting, in 2 weeks, if we have a quorum.
Yeah, there was certainly,
We're
That'll be
close.
another issue.
That'd be another issue. Not sure we'll have a quorum.
We're close. I'm going to send a reminder out.
I guess it's good. Let's get those,
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, Tyler. Hey, Tyler, when are you coming back from DC? How would that Friday,
Thursday.
would Friday work for you? If we move the board meeting 2 days?
Yeah,
Give me notice, I probably could. I've got a couple of appointments.
It's hard for 20.
at this point, 2 weeks out, I would not want to try to move the meeting. And the last time we did that, we ended up with a lot of people unable to come.
Other people that couldn't
Other
make
people who couldn't
I
come.
know, that's why that second Wednesday we try to lock in. So
Yeah.
I'll do a reminder. Stay tuned. 14th is still on. I think I have 5+1. We're almost to 7.
5 plus 1?
Yeah, one maybe.
Oh, maybe,
Checking
okay.
the calendar item. But I'll send a reminder out. All right, well, we'll get,
you gonna be here?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'll-
Do you want to
Workshop
adopt
is
this?
concluded.
What's
We
that?
can
Do you want to adopt this?
I'm okay with it.
close down the
Yeah,
recording.
I'm fine with
I'll
it.
make the motion.
Sure.
Is it Sheriff? Can you